One day, Charlie and his friends came upon an injured owl on a quiet country road. They carefully delivered the bird to a nearby animal care facility, where Charlie became unusually attached to the wild animal. As he was about to take the owl home, ready to take him in, an unexpected turn of events was in store for him. One day in spring, Charlie and his motorcycle gang started a ride into the local forest. The route, which was their favorite around, led them to a very nice village where they had always stopped for a great meal. Cruising on the winding road, the journey of the group was suddenly interrupted by the tiny, quivering body of an owl hatchling in the middle of the road. The little bird looked around in amazement and hungry, possibly separated from the family during the last rain. Compassionately, Charlie quickly called the Wildlife Conservation Service and the local authorities for help. Responding swiftly, they arrived to ensure the hatchling's safe transfer to a professional wildlife care facility. There, the bird would receive the care it needed, with the hope of eventually returning to the wild. Feeling reassured that the owl was in good hands, Charlie and his friends resumed their ride. Further in, they found a felled tree across the path, obviously cut by illegal loggers, and another sign of deforestation that threatened the habitats of so many creatures, including the young owl they had just saved. The incident stayed in Charlie's mind and connected him more to the forest and its wildlife. A few weeks later, his curiosity getting the better of him, Charlie called the Wildlife Conservation Service to inquire into the owl's progress. He was invited to visit their facility and see the bird for himself. There, he was amazed at the transformation. What was a fragile, helpless hatchling had grown into a magnificent owl with bright feathers and a sharp stare. However, the staff shared one concern. Though it was physically recovered, the owl hadn't tried to fly. They explained that while its body was strong, it still needed a lot of mental and emotional support to thrive. Since the day of the rescue, Charlie had felt a deep sense of responsibility for the little owl. Determined to help, he began visiting the sanctuary regularly. He learned to feed and care for the bird, clean its enclosure, and even hold it in his hands. As time passed, Charlie's bond with the owl deepened. It was no longer just a rescued bird for him. It felt a part of his life. Each visit became a highlight of his days, as he grew increasingly attached to the remarkable creature he had saved. One day, as Charlie was feeding the owl, he felt it stare with its big, shiny eyes, as if trying to convey something. The bird suddenly started flapping its wings and hopping in the enclosure. It was as if the owl had come to a point when it could fly and needed to get back into the wild. The caretakers of the Wildlife Conservation Service agreed, but were skeptical as, though it was ready physically, the owl hadn't flown on its own yet. Nevertheless, they took a chance and thought they should try releasing it into the wild. The arrangements to release the owl were made to a secluded area in the forest where the owl could live happily. The cage door opened. The owl did not budge. Then, with a burst of determination, it spread its wings and soared into the sky. Charlie and the caretakers watched it circle overhead, then vanish into the dense forest. A surge of satisfaction washed over Charlie. He had found a way to get the little owl back into the wild. Yet he could not help but feel just a little sad, although he knew this was what was best. But as Charlie turned to leave, he felt a gust of air and the soft brush of feathers against his cheek. To the amazement of all, the owl flew back, landing on Charlie's shoulder and hooting softly. The caretakers were astonished. Wild birds seldom return to humans after release. For Charlie, this sealed the special bond he shared with the owl, and he felt grateful. The wildlife specialists were less enthusiastic. Sanctuaries work with the ultimate goal of ensuring the successful reintegration of an animal into the wild, so its return suggested that the owl might not have the independence needed to survive. Suspecting that the owl became too dependent on human attention and care, the team took it back to their center. Charlie, given the deep sense of responsibility in him, offered the bird a permanent home when it could not be rehabilitated into the wild again. The Conservation Service agreed, believing this might be the best outcome for the owl. Charlie went home that evening, already envisioning a life with the owl he had named Hoot, and promised to return the next day to take him home. Getting ready for bed, a surprise message lit Charlie's phone. It was from a volunteer at the sanctuary with some news that left him speechless. The results of a DNA test had come in. Hoot wasn't just any owl. He belonged to an ultra-rare species thought to be extinct. Local legend held that villagers believed the rare Cameroon wood owl was in possession of mystical powers and human-like intelligence. Although none of this was based on any scientific fact, its rarity and elusiveness had probably inspired such yarns. The owl had not been seen for many years, and that made it part of cherished village folklore. Charlie was flabbergasted to discover that Hoot, the little bird he rescued, belonged to such an extraordinary species. This revelation deepened his appreciation for their bond and filled him with awe for the journey ahead. That night, Charlie dreamed about going on adventures with his new friend, Hoot. However, the next day would be full of surprises. On arriving at the Wildlife Center to take Hoot home, Charlie found something astonishing happening there. As he came up to the cage, he heard a faint hooting coming from the trees. Soon, a big owl appeared and landed on top of the cage. It was much larger and stronger than Hoot, but unmistakably similar in appearance. A volunteer who was part of the audience called out that it was another Cameroon wood owl, Hoot's mom. The mother owl had been in search of her hatchling and finally found him. As Charlie reached to unlock the cage, all were frozen in amazement at what happened next. The mother owl deftly used her beak to unlock the cage herself. Hoot stepped out, paused to look at his rescuer, then turned to his mother. With a soft hoot, she enveloped him under her wings. As she was going to fly away into the woods with her baby, the mother owl gave Charlie a soft, thanking glance. Charlie felt a swirl of emotions. Heartache to say goodbye to Hoot, but joy in knowing he was reunited with his family. The moment was unforgettable. Yet Charlie couldn't stop marveling at the mother owl's intelligence and her unwavering bond with Hoot after weeks of separation. Later, when he shared the story with villagers, they reminded him that the Cameroon wood owl was a legendary clever bird with supposed magical abilities. Not being 100% convinced that was what he had seen, nonetheless made him walk away with a respect way beyond what he thought over the brilliance of wild animals. The experience deeply stirred him. By Hoot's story, Charlie becomes a dedicated volunteer in this wildlife conservation service and intends to support the creatures living in the forest. What an amazing story. Did you know that some birds can use their beaks and claws to unlock cages or open gates? Would you ever volunteer at a wildlife sanctuary that protects rare species like the Cameroon wood owl? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.